So I just want to start saying a crazy statistic I've learned recently. 92 million jobs are going to be displaced by AI. Think about that, 92 million. But 170 million are going to come out of AI. And so a lot of jobs are going to be changed over the next few years. Not necessarily going to be taken away, but they're going to be added to our economy. So a lot of times what I like to think about with AI is, for small business owners, like the people in this room that we have to use it as an opportunity and a tool rather than a crutch. It's very important to make sure that we learn what that means. So today, we're going to talk about that. As I think everybody knows in here, I'm Landry Lemoine, Director of ELSEWORKS at Millsaps College, and our students are using this in the same capacity as well. So we're teaching them this same kind of ideas that we're going to be talking about today. And also, just if y'all have a phone that has ChatGPT or any AI service, feel free to bring it out. And this is going to be more of a workshop rather than a presentation, so it'll kind of be a little bit of a back and forth. So feel free to just ask questions, just shoot them. And we'll kind of go through them. We have 3 different things that we're going to talk about today. The first one, which I think is probably the most important, is crafting effective prompts. So we'll start with that, and then we'll move on to the deep research feature that ChatGPT and other AIs use, and then also image generation. And so we'll start with that. So first off, I think y'all probably all know, but ChatGPT and other AI services, they can do pretty much anything. I mean, they go from emails to marketing copy to really anything that you can think of. However, you have to be careful. And actually, this was a crazy one I did not expect, but according to Harvard Business Review's last month article, they actually pulled that most people nowadays, the #1 use for ChatGPT. Can y'all think about it? Think what y'all would think it would be, potentially? Good guess? Huh? Exactly, that's it, therapy. Therapy has become the new one. So it's and it's the first time, so they've done this every year. And this is the first time that therapy and self-help and all these different factors have gone into it. So a lot of people are trusting AI, but it's crazy to think that how much, AI kind of encompasses in daily lives of people. So definitely getting familiar with it. But, there are some limitations. I think a lot of us have heard of hallucinations. So making sure that you're not just trusting AI with everything in your life. You have to be careful not to, just trust AI with just everything. You have to make sure that you're fact checking and make sure that you're looking at it. Also, this is one thing that the ChatGPT and all these AIs have talked about recently is agreeableness. And so ChatGPT has become incredibly agreeable. So if you give it a statement, it's going to try to prove your statement right more than it is going to try to prove your statement wrong. So you have to be very careful and tell it to look for other blind spots and different things. So kind of looking towards that. So first, I'm going to talk about crafting our effective prompts. So this is probably the most important thing I'll say tonight, but garbage in, garbage out. So whatever you put into ChatGPT is what you're going to get out of it in all these different services. So kind of looking at it in that regard, you have to make sure that you are giving it the context. So I'm going to kind of give you all a framework that I use and that many of professionals use to understand how to effectively give it these prompts. And so there's a 5-step process. You start with its role. And so the role and this is going to be on y'all's handout right here on the side, but basically the role is you're giving it this context of who it is. And so, for example, if I'm Dr. Prinshaw's class and I'm looking for marketing, so I'm going to tell it, you are a marketing expert, you've been in this field for however long, and understand what we're doing here. And so you're trying to give it a little bit of context so it knows I'm working on marketing first, okay? I'm not like this all-encompassing thing. I'm just focusing on the marketing portion of it. And so then you give it your context, and that's kind of where you're phrasing what your business is or what you're trying to do. And so for Roderick's example, it kind of gives something about Red Square, the hanger. You give it a little bit of context that it would need to answer the prompt that you're giving it. So you're giving it a little bit of that. Next, you're gonna give it your task, and that's gonna be kind of the meat and potatoes. That's what you're giving it exactly what it needs to do. And so that's kind of, I can draft an email, I can look for a business deck. That's kind of where you're at with that. Approach, this one's kind of newer to me, and I thought it was actually really interesting, is kind of the style of it. And so you can give it some style and tell it, I want it to be more casual, I want it to be this, I want it to be, some people like in a marketing, I want it to be more like a retro marketing. I don't want it to be this modern hip thing. You can actually give it exactly what type of language that you want, and so that it can understand how you want it to come out. And so you're kind of dictating that output to it. And so then that last one is that format or the output. And so you're kind of asking it exactly what you're expecting. Are you expecting a picture? Are you expecting a PDF? Are you expecting a paragraph, 2 sentences? What are you expecting? So kind of using those 5 points, you can really craft a great prompt from there. And sometimes it takes some tweaking to go along with it, but typically that is going to be your best bet in trying to figure that out. Now, there are some AI giveaways, and every time I see these, and I bet our teachers in the room could probably tell, but every time I see these, I'm like, yep, they used it. And so one of them is called an M dash, and it looks like this. It is a massive dash in the middle of your paper, and it is like insane. And so if you see this, which you'll probably now start looking for, and you'll notice, and that is a dead giveaway, because humans, like our English vocabulary, we very rarely know how to use them and do use them. I mean, it's very difficult to even do it on like Microsoft Word or anything. I mean, it's kind of, you have to figure out how to do it, but that's a huge giveaway for AI. I mean, that is one thing I always look for, and every time I'm like, that's it. Another one, especially if you're doing marketing or something that's more creative, is excessive emojis. How many times I've seen, especially if you're doing like Instagram captions, Facebook captions, it will give you so many emojis. And so that's definitely something to look out for. And then lastly is the tone of the language and how it's talking. A lot of times it likes to talk very academic and very much high level. You can definitely tell if that person does not speak like that normally. That's probably a pretty dead giveaway, right? And so here's a couple of fixes to that. The M dash one, you can actually go into your ChatGPT settings. It says it on y'all's little handout, but you can go in there and tell it to never do M dashes. And a lot of times I've tried this. I've tell it in like an individual chat to do that, and it'll work for like a little bit, but then it'll stop working. And so it'll just keep doing it. But if you go actually into the settings, it'll actually take it out from all its responses, because you're training what ChatGPT does. And so you can also do that with emojis as well. And then for the tone, you can tell it to be conversational. Like I said, with the style, you can tell it to be conversational. You can tell what type of tone you want. But there's also another way that I've learned from one of our professors, is that on ChatGPT, there's these things called projects. And what projects are series of chats. And so you can put a lot of chats together. For example, I want to have one that's just for marketing. So I have marketing, but then I have all these chats for different companies that I work for, or different segments of my company, right? And so you can actually tell it in that project, you can give it some of your copy, so some of your word, how you talk, or how you do reports or whatever, and tell it that. And so then it's able to use your style, your persona is what they call it, and actually make it very similar to how you talk, which is very incredible, I think. I mean, it does a really great job at doing that. So I've done that sometimes and just figured that out. It's really interesting to do. And also those projects as well. If you're having one project with a lot of information, you can store that in there. So it's really cool to do that. And so I'm gonna give you all a couple examples, because I usually learn much more through example than just the theory and everything. And so that's where I like to learn. And a big one, so I gave Chat a couple different responses. So I was trying to figure out, we're CSs now, so I was like, let's try to figure out what CSs can do marketing-wise. So I gave it a prompt, and I said, write a Facebook post about this bar's burger special. It came back with, come try our burger special. Delicious burgers and drinks await you this weekend. Not so great, right? I mean, if I'm putting that on Instagram or Facebook, that's not too hot. But I said this, I redid the prompt and kind of gave it, I said, you are a marketing copywriter, write a fun, inviting Facebook post to promote CS's Bar in Midtown Jackson, emphasize our famous Mr. Pat's Gourmet Burgers, and mention $10 burger and beer combos this weekend, Friday to Sunday, and invite readers to visit our cozy bar located at 1359 Northwest Street. And I said, use an upbeat and casual tone. So then got a much more, engaging response, I would imagine. Still gave me a lot of emojis, so that was something I was like, but we can work on that. Weekends just got better at CS's. Swing by our Midtown location this Friday, Sunday for Mr. Pat's Gourmet Burger and Cold Beer Special for just $10. Located at 1359 Northwest Street, our cozy, laid-back spot. is perfect for afternoon lunches or chill weekend hangs. Bring your crew, grab a bite, and enjoy good vibes all weekend long. So much more, detail, much more engaging. You can really keep giving it more and more. The more detail you give it, obviously, the more, better it's going to get. So, like I said, yeah, exactly, good, and it definitely will change. It's a lifesaver. No, it's a lifesaver. And so a lot of this too is making sure. I like to say, as ChatGPT is kind of your assistant, but you have to be the editor in chief. And so you need to be the person that kind of edits and making sure that everything that it's saying is factual, but also it makes sense. You don't want it to sound boring and not engaging. You got to really give it some of that human element back to it. So that's kind of one thing that you definitely need to work on. And so I have a little exercise for y'all now, actually. And so I want y'all to kind of pick a business that y'all have. And if y'all have y'all's phones, feel free. But I want y'all to do kind of the same thing I did. So give it a prompt where it's not very detailed. So for a business that you'd have. So for example, Roger, you could do Red Square and say, I have an event coming up. Give me a prompt. Give me a Facebook post, Instagram post. And then we'll start with that. And so that'll be the kind of the first one. So you're kind of giving chat very little information about your post. So I'll give you a couple seconds to kind of work on that real quick. So now I'll kind of ask y'all to use that framework you'll have on here, the role, the context, task, approach, and output, and kind of just quickly go through that, and that will roll it through. Well, we'll move on. This one's kind of a newer thing. This one came out in February of 2025. This is the deep research model. Now this one is incredibly detailed, incredibly useful for any type of large projects that you may have. Now it takes 5 to 30 minutes per deep research rather than chat, which is typically a couple seconds. So it takes a lot of time, and also you only get so many per month. And so you kind of have to be very selective. And so usually what I do when I start these is I go, yes, there's only a certain amount that you get per month. It's like 20, I want to say. It's not many. You get capped out pretty quick. Yeah, exactly. So what I'll do is you can go into the ChatGPT, the other models, like the 4.0 model is what I usually use, and actually try to get, so what I usually do is try to get a great prompt. So initially, I am already starting ahead of the curve, and so I don't have to redo one of these deep researches, because honestly, I don't want to sit at my computer for an hour just to do 2 searches, because that's just, I don't mind leaving it, but at the same time, efficiency is what this is part of. So basically, the biggest thing about the deep research, there's a couple different kind of use case scenarios that I love to look at. A lot of it either is market and competitive analysis, kind of looking at your market, and you can actually give it. So for example, we can do CS as an example, and it'll give you a market analysis of all, it'll do research, it'll actually look at the local, it'll look at the web and look at any local competitors or anything like that. I think that's really a huge use of it. That's very important. And it uses logic to kind of go through this. If you watch it while it's working, it'll actually tell you what it's doing. So it'll say, searching the web for blah, 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 and any comparable. And so it's really cool to be able to look at it that way. Also, a couple other things I love to use it for is the blind spot monitoring. And so if you're going through, blind spot monitoring. So if I have a paper or I have anything that I'm writing, I typically will throw it in there, and I'll ask it, what are my blind spots? What am I not looking out for? Or a proposal or anything. And I ask it specifically, I want you to attack me on this. Don't be agreeable, and really figure out what I need to look out for. And so then you're already prepared. So if you're going into a meeting for a business or whatnot, you already know what they're going to ask. I mean, that you already have those answers down pat. You don't have to think about it. That's one thing I actually did when we had our ELSEWORKS final presentation. I, wrote our whole entire presentation into this, and then I asked it, what are some questions that would be applicable, that would be blind spots, and I gave those to the analysts. Exactly, and so you kind of think about it. Obviously, there'll be some things you never think about. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's the opposite. Exactly. Exactly.
The same way you got to get together and talk about stuff, if you treat it like a partner, it's really good, because you can do it by yourself, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can train on accident. I can train on purpose and remember things.
And you can ask it. One thing I love to do sometimes, I'll periodically check in, is like, tell me everything you know about me based on your memory.
Yeah.
And that's scary. It's scary. But it does give you some, you know, it tell you. Yes.
So we've talked a lot about ChatGPT. Have you used other models, other systems?
Lightly, yes.
What's your experience?
Lightly, I think for me, I got into ChatGPT incredibly early. I mean, I got in probably the month after they came out, and so I've just used it so long, and it has so much memory that I think I've kind of skewed towards that just because I feel like it's already built that base, and you don't have to redo that again. So I haven't used as much other ones, but yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much where I would say. But I know there's other people use it. That's why. Yeah, Anthropic, Claude. Claude's good.
Not much. I've used the Google version only to create a podcast.
Yeah, okay.
For one of my classes where I was taking a research article and it's going to make it read it. I wanted it to be somewhat interesting, and I put it in there and got it to create a podcast.
Gotcha.
Like Google did really well.
Yeah, Google's really. I know a couple of our people use that. Yeah. And speaking of Google, this is actually a really very new update. This just came out last month. So a lot of people are using ChatGPT as Google, basically. And so one thing you can do is actually train ChatGPT as a business owner. It's called an LLMO. It's a learned language, I've got to make sure I get this, large language model optimization. And so basically what it does is you can go to the website and tell ChatGPT what you do, and it'll actually put you in the database. And so what it's going to do is whenever somebody searches up best film production in Mississippi, Red Square is going to be the first one because that's the only one that's probably knows about this. And so if you put that in there, and Millsaps, for example, yeah, I'm about to say at best college in the state. And so that's like, it's almost like SEO, search engine optimization. It's the new part of it. And so, yes.
Because people start using Google as much.
Exactly.
The way that ChatGPT works, it combs websites for keywords.
Yes.
So now in an optimized website, you should
Yes.
We got to go back.
Yes. And so basically what this is ChatGPT using its internal sources, and it's using those first, and then it'll use those external, like searching the web to find searches. So.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Travel.
Okay, go for it.
Somebody said that was a big question.
Yeah.
They always ask you, kind of recommend hotels.
Yeah.
Specific. So I'm just wondering how much, are they connected? Is there a revenue stream for these? I mean, has that been figured out yet? Monetized?
They're trying to figure that out. I think that's the next step is people are trying to monetize ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is like not doing that.
Is ChatGPT trying to monetize it?
No, they're still.
I read the article.
Is a nonprofit, and so technically. Yeah.
They were trying to make it a for-profit.
Yes.
But I think that they're working on, they were trying to partner with, what's the website? Shop, like they were working
Oh,
on.
Shift or whatever.
Shopify.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So they were trying. So they're figuring it out because they're really trying to figure it out in real time. They're trying to partner with Shopify where it would be kind of included inside of there.
Yes.
So yeah, that's actually good. But it's like integration. So integration of ChatGPT with Shopify is going to revolutionize e-commerce.
Yeah.
Chat can now help with tasks like writing.
You would think as long as it's not a profit, we wouldn't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
But it's being pulled in.
It's been pulled a lot. Everybody, I mean, everybody, any profit to be made, they're gonna try to make it. So.
Well, again, it's such a because of the technology, it's so hard to get the blocks.
Yeah.
So there's a big wide road of opportunities, and everybody, it's really smart people just trying to figure it out. It's the wild west now. You can literally.
Exactly.
I feel like I got cheat
Yes.
codes. I'm able to go after grants and stuff, and go after proposals, and I otherwise wouldn't have been able to write.
Yes.
But now I can,
Yeah.
punch up on my weight like,
Good.
well, I can do this.
Good. Everybody catch up. Yeah. And what some people are actually doing too, speaking of travel, is they're actually making websites that use ChatGPT as the base and using that to kind of monetize that website in terms of, so they can like you can say, this is where I want to go, and then it basically feeds it straight into ChatGPT, and then it outputs your answer. And so it's kind of like they're using it. Yeah, they're making it a business, which is, you know, good for them.
I've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, exactly. And so
They
they're,
tell you, so AI. Yeah, all they do.
yeah, I do running, and so like there's so many like running AIs, but basically all it's using is ChatGPT and figuring out, it's basically it's going back and forth, and so
Hey, running AI every month.
yeah,
Gotta give you that.
exactly. And so I'm always like, okay, I'm just use chat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just easier and it knows me better. And then the last thing we'll talk about is the image generating. And so back in March of 2025, they updated this, and it's the ChatGPT 4.0 image generator, and it's so much better. Before it was like incredibly hit or miss. I mean, it would probably spell everything wrong. I mean, it looked like it did not know how to spell. It looked like it was a kindergartner trying to spell. The images were not so great. You couldn't actually ask it to edit the images without it completely changing the image. And so now with the new updates, you can actually give it anything you really want. And I've given y'all like a little on the guide on how to like kind of talk to it about it. But basically, you can really give it almost anything and it'll create an image for you, basically from nothing. So I gave it, again, very similar. I gave it a chat. I said, I want you to make me a poster about CSs and this event that we're having coming up. And then that was the second prompt. The first prompt was, I have an event of CSs. And this is what I got. I was like, interesting. Interesting, for sure. And so then I said, okay, let's make it more business association Midtown colors, kind of orange, a little bit red, make it where people are outside hanging out. Doesn't have to be perfect CSs, but I wanted to have that kind of good vibe where I could put it on an Instagram post. And this is what I got, much better, not perfect, but much better. Still spelled a little bit wrong, but you can also, a lot of people, what I'll do is go into Canva. You can actually just change that and like actually edit it. And so that's one thing you can do is kind of going back into a different editor. But basically the image generator is gotten to the point where it is amazing. One example, I brought one today, is I gave it this, I wanted to kind of do a sweatshirt that kind of commemorated ELSEWORKS and like our involvement in Midtown, Millsaps, and the Jackson community. And I also wanted to be kind of cool, something that people would actually like wear and want to wear. And so I told it, I want this kind of the seaside look. So if you've ever been to Seaside, it looks like Roderick just went there. So he knows very well. He's probably seen this shirt, but we did it with this. But then on the back, I gave it reference images of all the places. And I did each one of these individually. It wasn't just one. So just so y'all know, it's not that amazing yet. But I gave it a reference, and then I told it, I gave it the Seaside shirt, and this is what it came out. And yeah, I mean, yeah, if you want to see it.
I can see it.
Yeah, y'all can actually see it.
It's ours if I'm works better when you do break it down.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it does get, if you give it an image, you can just say, just make this to make a line art.
It's
So
amazing.
you've been using it.
Yeah. And you can actually give it, so one thing really cool too is like you can give it styles. So for example, if you like a show like, let's say you like the Truman Show and how like it looks and like how the like, you know, how it's like on at Seaside and how it actually looks, like the whole vibe of it. You can actually give it a reference photo and then give it a photo of you or anything else and tell it, make me have it that same type of, you know, effect. And you can actually give it to that. And so it's really a great, I mean, I don't know how much you've used it for that, but it's amazing in terms of trying to figure out how to do references. Yeah, it's really fun, honestly. And you can even do like cartoons and stuff. So you can do like, if you have a cartoon show that you like and you want to make your friend in that cartoon, you can actually do it like that. But yeah, no, it's so good at that. And like, there's a lot of things that you want to kind of give it, but you know, kind of give it it's just like the original prompt. The more you give it, the better it's going to turn out. So a lot of times I would love to just give it as many references or as much inspiration as you can. That's the better it's going to do. So that's pretty much all I have for y'all tonight, but I want y'all to just remember the 3 things about, that's 3. Prompt engineering, and then to use deep research, how to use deep research, and how to do image generation. So those are kind of the 3 different things. Prompt engineering especially. Yeah. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all.